Imagine walking out to your sunroom or porch in the crisp early morning. You look at that potted lemon tree you've been pampering for years. You bought the expensive commercial potting soil, you watered it religiously, and you gave it the absolute sunniest spot on your homestead. But what do you get for all that back-breaking devotion? A gorgeous, leafy green bush, but absolutely nothing else. Not a single tiny white flower bud in sight. There is no sweet, intoxicating citrus scent riding on the breeze, and certainly no homegrown lemons to stock your pantry for the winter. Welcome back to the homestead, friends. I'm thrilled you've joined me around the work table today because we're going to discuss a lost piece of old world wisdom that will completely revolutionize how you view your fruit trees, your backyard systems, and the silent, demanding language of nature. Folks out there wait years, dumping money into fancy store-bought fertilizers, praying their tree will finally give them fruit. They keep feeding and coddling, completely unaware that a solitary, humble ingredient, likely sitting right now in your woodshed or kitchen, is the ultimate trigger to push a stubborn citrus into a massive flush of blossoms. Today, I'm going to hand you that homesteading secret. Plain and simple. But be warned, true self-reliance isn't just about blindly tossing powders onto the dirt and hoping for a miracle. To master your harvest, we have to look under the hood and understand exactly what is happening inside the sap of that tree. We need to know why it stubbornly pushes out leaves instead of setting buds. We are going to learn how the old-timers used precise timing, intentional deprivation, and raw plant biology to guarantee a heavy fruit set year after year. Stick with me, and the way your garden behaves will never feel like a mystery again. You will step into your yard with the confidence of an old-world orchardist. Roll up your sleeves, breathe in that fresh air, and let's uncover the rugged secret to abundant citrus. Let's start by looking at why your tree is holding out on you. To fix the problem, we must understand the failure. And the first hard truth I have to ask is this: have you made your lemon tree entirely too comfortable? In modern gardening, we're taught to baby our plants, to give them endless warmth, perfect moisture, and an expensive, steady drip of nutrients. But nature's machinery doesn't run on pure luxury. When a tree lives in a state of constant, easy abundance, it slips into a vegetative coma I like to call the growth comfort zone. Deep within the plant, a biological calculation is being made. Should I keep building leaves, or should I take on the heavy burden of reproduction? When resources are infinite, there is zero urgency to bloom. Why spend precious energy making flowers and seeds when survival is virtually guaranteed and life is incredibly easy? The biggest culprit of this modern pampering is excess nitrogen. Nitrogen is essential, sure, but its primary job is pushing green, vegetative growth. It builds chlorophyll and proteins, which is why your heavily fed tree looks spectacular, boasting a lush, glossy, deep green canopy. You look at those vibrant leaves and assume you are a master gardener with a perfectly healthy plant. But the truth is, the tree has been manipulated into an endless childhood, pushed entirely too far into leaf production. The high nitrogen forces all the plant's stored carbohydrates to rush into building soft new shoots. This floods the internal plumbing with growth hormones like auxins and gibberellins. While they make a pretty bush, these hormones viciously suppress the mechanisms that form flower buds. The tree has the genetics to give you fruit, but it is locked in a state of permanent youth, making leaves and refusing to move forward into maturity. It's a harsh reality we see in our own lives, isn't it? Without a little struggle or pressure, we stop producing our best work. Your lemon tree is no different. It might look pretty on the outside, but without the right kind of environmental push, it will never feel the instinct to bloom. If endless comfort traps the tree, what breaks the cycle and forces it to reproduce? The answer lies in a radical shift in its environment. The plant requires a stark warning that the easy days are over. It requires a brief season of controlled, mild stress. Remember, citrus evolved over generations in rugged regions where punishing seasonal shifts and dry spells were just part of the yearly rhythm. When you keep the potting soil perfectly damp, the roots get lazy. They drink up water without a fight, signaling to the canopy that life is forever stable. There is absolutely no panic, and therefore, no urgency to flower. But when we apply an old orchard trick called controlled water stress, the plant's survival instincts violently kick in. By cutting back the water for 12 to 20 days, just enough to make the leaves show a gentle, tired droop, we artificially create a drought. The tree suddenly realizes things are getting tough, and it instantly switches gears to secure its legacy by preparing to reproduce. This intentional thirst halts the flush of soft green leaves, breaks the dominant grip of vegetative hormones, and forces the tree to hoard carbohydrates instead of wasting them on useless foliage. But drought is only half the battle. Sunlight is the other crucial ingredient. If your canopy is a tangled, overgrown mess, the inner branches sit in darkness and cannot properly photosynthesize. Without that solar power, the inner wood lacks the stored energy to sustain heavy flower buds. That is exactly why ruthless, structural pruning matters. By cutting away those arrogant, upright water sprouts and carving out the center of the tree, you allow the sun to penetrate deep into the canopy. That blast of light acts as a homing beacon, signaling to the tree exactly which mature points are ready to bear the weight of a harvest. So we know we must cut the nitrogen and simulate a mild drought. But what provides the final, undeniable command to bloom? What forces that stubborn, leafy plant to completely abandon leaf production and start building blossoms? In the commercial and serious homesteading world, the secret tool is monopotassium phosphate, or MKP. This ingredient is the silver bullet because it provides massive flowering fuel without dropping a single ounce of nitrogen into the soil. For a bud to mutate into a blossom, the tree relies on a reproductive signal known as florigen. But to activate florigen, the plant's vegetative drive must be halted, and a massive influx of precise minerals must arrive precisely on time. This is where phosphorus and potassium act like a perfectly tuned engine. Phosphorus handles the energy transfers. It supplies the sheer biological voltage required to turn an ordinary bud into a cluster of flowers. Potassium is the foreman. It doesn't push soft green growth. Instead, it regulates the sap enzymes, controls water retention, and shuttles sugars directly from the leaves down into those swelling buds. Standard commercial fertilizers are usually loaded with nitrogen, keeping the plant trapped in a leafy prison. MKP is a highly concentrated, fully water-soluble powder of pure phosphorus and potassium with zero nitrogen. When applied correctly, it sends an emergency broadcast through the sap in a matter of days. The raw, biological message is simple. Stop making leaves immediately and prepare to bloom. Do not make the rookie mistake of immediately dumping this onto your plant's roots. True homesteading requires profound patience. You cannot take a soft, spoiled, nitrogen-bloated tree and shock it into a miraculous harvest overnight. We have to forge the plant first. Begin with the stress preparation phase. Exactly 2 weeks before you plan to trigger the bloom, cut off all sources of nitrogen. If you use compost tea or an all-purpose feed, lock it away completely. This forces the tree to burn off the excess nitrogen polluting its sap and shifts its focus away from new growth. At exactly the same time, initiate your controlled water stress. Cut your water routine down by 20 to 30%. If your habit is watering every 3 days, force the tree to endure 4 or 5 days. We aren't trying to punish the tree or scorch the foliage into dust. We just want the roots to hit dry dirt long enough to recognize that the easy days have ended. During this fortnight of deprivation, the plant's metabolism slows to a crawl. It abandons the rush to build new leaves and reconfigures its internal energy. It begins aggressively hoarding its carbohydrates, saving its strength for the demanding task ahead. This silent, calculated hoarding phase is the absolute bedrock of a spectacular flowering response. Once your plant has endured the 2-week fast, it's time to deliver the final blow. We use a proven 2-pronged attack, a potent soil drench combined with a misting foliar spray. For the drench, measure out roughly 3 to 5 grams of MKP per liter of clean, room temperature water. Agitate it until it's completely dissolved and the liquid runs crystal clear. But heed this strict homestead rule. Never pour concentrated minerals onto bone-dry roots, or you will cause catastrophic salt burn and cripple the plant. Give the parched roots a gentle sip of plain water, wait an hour, and then flood the drip line with your MKP solution directly over where the delicate feeder roots are waiting. Next, we bypass the root system entirely for the foliar spray. Mix a weaker batch, about 1 to 2 grams per liter, in a separate bottle. Coat the leaves and the growing tips during the cool of the morning or the fading light of dusk. This lets the foliage aggressively pull the phosphorus and potassium straight into the plant's veins without waiting for the slow root uptake. Never execute this at high noon. The sun will magnify through the droplets and brutally scorch your canopy. When you hit the tree from both the soil and the sky simultaneously, the chemical message is heard loud, fast, and remarkably clear. Now, for those of us living off the land, leaning away from store-bought commercial products, how do we recreate this organically? Long before modern farming, the old-timers used the refuse of the homestead, the hearth, and the kitchen scrap to guarantee a heavy harvest. Your wood stove is a gold mine. Clean hardwood ash from the fireplace is one of the most powerful resources on the farm. Traditionally, this is how our ancestors extracted potassium carbonate, which gave birth to the word potash. Wood ash boasts an NPK ratio of around 0:1:3, meaning it offers practically zero nitrogen, but hits the soil with a heavy dose of potassium, some phosphorus, and calcium. Come winter, take a double handful per square meter and broadcast it around the base of the tree. Scratch it into the topsoil gently, but exercise caution. Dumping too much will turn the dirt dangerously alkaline. The second secret weapon is the humble banana peel, a completely natural, sustainable battery of pure potassium. You can chop organic peels and steep them in water for a few days to brew a raw nutrient tea. Better yet, bake them in the brutal sun until they are black and brittle, then grind them down into a fine dust. This homestead powder acts as a slow-release fertilizer in the soil, moving sugars through the sap and fortifying the structural integrity of the coming fragrant blooms. It proves a beautiful old truth. The earth provides exactly what we need, if we just possess the wisdom to recognize it. Before you run out to the orchard, listen closely to this vital warning. You cannot force a crippled, weak tree to bear fruit. Sometimes the lack of blooms isn't a phosphorus shortage at all. Sometimes the tree is fundamentally starved of cellular energy. Look at the older foliage. If those leaves are bleeding yellow while the veins stay stubbornly green, your tree is suffering from a crippling magnesium deficiency. Modern gardeners miss this entirely, but magnesium is the literal beating heart of the chlorophyll molecule. Without it, the plant's solar panels are broken. If it cannot generate power, it absolutely will not waste its failing strength on creating flowers. The homesteader's cure is Epsom salt, pure magnesium sulfate. Dissolve 2 heavy tablespoons, roughly 30 grams, into a liter of water. Drench the soil or mist it lightly over the dying canopy. Watch the deep green lifeblood return as the plant restores its energy grid, finally making it strong enough to endure the fruiting process. And if you have a stubborn, barren branch that still refuses to cooperate, use the ancient art of shoot bending. Upright, vertical branches are flooded with a suppressive hormone called auxin, which flows down from the tip and locks up all the side buds in a phenomenon known as apical dominance. Take that arrogant branch, bend it aggressively to a 45 or 60-degree angle, and tie it to a stake. You are literally using gravity to strangle the hormone flow. Within weeks, the dormant buds along that wood will erupt into life. A barren stick will physically transform into a weeping wand of massive flower clusters. This is how you manipulate nature's raw architecture to command the behavior of your orchard. Every old orchardist knows that timing separates the amateurs from the masters. Citrus trees run on a biological clock deeply tied to the cold. They demand a chilling period, usually a stretch of 10 to 20 brisk nights dipping below 15 degrees Celsius, 59 degrees Celsius, to internally program their reproductive cycle. The absolute best time to unleash your ash, your banana powder, or your MKP is the exact moment this cold snap breaks and the spring warmth finally returns. The winter chill has primed the internal pump. Your nutrient blast acts as the final explosive spark toward flowering. If your timing is true, stand back and wait. Within 10 to 21 days, you will witness the magic. Tight green knots will begin to form at the joints of the old wood. Those knots will swell, burst open, and expose immaculate white petals. Before long, your entire property will reek of that heavy, intoxicating citrus perfume that only homegrown lemons can provide. But don't lay down your tools yet. If your tree is sheltered indoors or in a greenhouse away from natural pollinators, you must step in. Take a dry artist brush and carefully dab the pollen from the anthers to the sticky stigma of nearby blooms. You must become the bee, and above all, avoid the ultimate heartbreak. Do not ruin it by aggressively feeding the tree nitrogen the second you see a flower. A sudden spike in nitrogen will cause the plant to immediately abort the blossoms in a rush to make more leaves, causing total bud drop. Hold your fire until the tiny green lemons have securely anchored to the branch, then gently nourish them with a mild organic emulsion like seaweed or fish fertilizer. Whenever I work the soil and walk this path, I realize the orchard is a mirror of our own existence. When life is nothing but pure comfort, constant resources, and easy living, things might look spectacular on the surface. A pampered tree grows fat, green, and full of leaves, but it produces absolutely no fruit. It leaves no lasting legacy behind. Real transformation requires a bitter shift, a season of drought, a stretch of cold weather, a sharp break from the easy times. Those harsh signals command the tree to adapt, and when that adversity is met with the right internal nourishment, it finally gathers the fierce energy to bloom. We are not so different from the garden. In a state of absolute comfort, we rarely grow in the deepest, most profound ways. It is the brutal challenges, the shifting seasons, and the right kind of nourishment that force us to adapt and create something meaningful. Your homestead isn't just a place to crank out food, it is a profound, living classroom. If this old-world wisdom has shed light on your citrus woes, or perhaps on your own seasons of personal growth, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment below and let me know. Is your tree finally waking up, or are you still enduring the drought? I read every single story you write, and I want to hear how you are faring out there. Until next time, keep your hands dirty, listen to the brutal honesty of the earth, and as always, find joy in the hard work of self-sufficient living.